Kenneth Brown, D135004, Lance Corporal Brown.
You were involved in the events of D-Day?
Yes.
What were your preparations for D-Day?
Oh, they were big. It was a big thing before D-Day. 2 years before we had to do all our waterproof, all our equipment, all our tanks, all our ammunition, everything else had to be in sealed containers to come across to get out of till after the landing. And then after the landing, you had to take all that stuff off again after you drove a few miles, because you couldn't drive with it on. I trained I took most of the training in Canada, but then we took more training when we came to England, and that was it. We were all trained then, ready till we started for the invasion, and then we had to look after our vehicles, and that was it. We were all ready for to go. No, when I landed in England, I was a driver instructor. I learned the ATS girls how to drive. I tested a lot of our own drivers, and we also went on different schemes, different training schemes as a landing or something like that. And that's pretty all we had to do. You just keep up your daily routines. We were trained for everything. I was trained when I left Canada. I could drive most anything, any equipment that the government had in the army at that time, such as motorcycles, tanks, and Bren gun carriers, anything they had made.
But for example, when you would be in battle action, then you were also only trained to drive a vehicle, or were you also a soldier that would pop out of the vehicle?
At any time.
Okay.
At any time.
But primarily you were a driver?
A driver, yes. Okay. Yeah.
An infantry driver?
Not too many. Not too many infantry drivers. Most infantry drivers would drive a small Bren gun carrier or a Jeep. See, once you get into the bigger stuff, you'd have to go into the tanks, and you'd have to learn how to operate the bigger tank. Or in my case, I had trained on them all. And then when we went into action in France, I drove a tank off the barge to go into action, which we lost 3 of them, just about one right after the other, traveling too close to one another.
What did you know about the landing before you left England?
Not very much. Nothing more than you see a picture. You knew you knew how it was going to happen. But it was quite scary at the time. But I don't know. It didn't seem to really bother us that much. You had to do it. You had to do it, eh?
But you didn't know. There was just a message. Tomorrow you will leave here, and you didn't know where you would go.
That's right. That's right. When you hit the beach, you're on your own. Well, you had orders to do. You had first special things. You had operating places you're supposed to try to get to, and then you had your reconnaissance that did signal back and forth all the time to where you were. But sometimes the signals didn't get through the way that they should have. Eh? That's why a lot of the lads got cornered different times. If you were landing or advancing, sometimes maybe one advance on your right-hand side, they'd have no resistance at all, and you could go right ahead. The one in the center, maybe they'd go ahead, and the one on the left couldn't. Well, then we were bombed outside of Caen. We were bombed. The English bombed us in the morning. The Americans bombed us in the afternoon, and then the Canadians come back and bombed us again that night, because it was our own fault. It wasn't our own fault. It was a map reading. You couldn't make a camp in a swamp, so we went up onto a hill and went the hill too far up, and they got us. Well, they did a lot of damage. Didn't hurt too many soldiers, but they burnt a lot of our equipment. That's what they were after anyway. If they were supposed to knock the German equipment out, so instead of knocking theirs out, they're knocking ours out.
So that was quite a friendly fire.
Friendly fire, yeah.
Okay, but let's go back to the landing. You left England in a big boat, a big ship, I guess.
No, to come to France?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a landing craft.
Immediately in
Immediately
the landing
from we loaded all those craft in England before they left before we left over there. I forget how many tanks. I can't tell you how many tanks would be on the one. There are 2 stories, eh? So you drop the big door down, the first goes out, and the other door drops, and out comes a bunch more. We left England in the dark. Did not know. Left England in the afternoon because it was still daylight. But then it got dark, and we tried to land in France again. We tried to land in the dark, but it wasn't at the time. The first guys that got there, it was in the dark. They'd be landing, I'd imagine around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. But then it takes time. I can imagine around 8 o'clock before I landed.
Okay, and you were in the landing craft?
In the tank.
Okay, you were in the tank on the landing.
Yep.
In the landing craft.
In the landing, yeah.
And with how many boys were you in the craft?
There were 6 of us in the 6 in the tank.
6 in the tank, and how many boys? Or was the tank?
It was sitting just like you are there, and I'm driving it, and you go off the ramp. Once you go off the ramp, well, then you're going to meet resistance. We met a lot of resistance before we got off the tank.
Yeah, because the Germans wanted to eliminate the tank, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But you were the tank was the only object on the landing craft.
Oh no, there'd be more. It'd be one. The tank would be here. Be another side of that. We're all heading to come off, eh?
And what kind of resistance did you receive when you?
Mostly all the big guns. The small ammunition that fired at the tank. There's no resistance at all. Eh? They just glance soft, the same as a stone or something.
Okay.
No.
So you managed to get the tank on the shore.
I got that on the forward, and they hit my left front wheel, left front track, and blew the track off. Well, on the track off, that's it. You got to bail out. They got a few of the guys getting out, but not too many. Then we lost 3 before we got the next. Then I forget one. I forget what tank I took after that. There was 3 or 4 of us. We got out of that tank and got in another tank where those guys had been wounded. We had to take their place, see?
Okay. So when I summarize it, when you got off, your left tire or your left belt was shot off, then the tank is eliminated. You popped out, and you went to another tank where the guys were wounded, and you took over that tank.
That's right, yeah.
Incredible. Okay, you went from one tank to another, and then what?
We just followed up. You kicked the lid, and then we took our position. You get your orders back then for there to where to get in the lineup. But we stayed there for, we must have been down there for pretty near the rest of the day before we moved in to get any distance. Then we had to take. There was a small airstrip, and we had to try to get to that airstrip so as we could get that our planes could start to land. And we did. We managed to get to that depot, to that spot that night. But you stayed in the tank. We never got out of the tank at all. Oh yeah, we're wrong. We got out of the tank, but I mean, you didn't get out to take any runs or any walks or anything like that.
You were in the other tank with the crew of the shot tank, the first tank. What was the atmosphere in the tank between the guys?
Oh, some were worked up about it, but others weren't. You had, as I said before, you had a job to do. You had to go ahead and do it, eh? We were extra men then in the next tank because there wasn't the ones that were wounded. They had to stay with our tanks. We kept them there till the manager or something come to get them. I don't know. They were still there when we moved out. You left them behind. We knew that they were going to be picked up by the I don't know what they used there. I think it was 800 weights or small 4-wheel vehicles to come to pick the wounded up, eh?
And the atmosphere or the was there panic, or was everybody calm? Was everybody still thinking?
Oh yeah, we're all thinking, but it changes your mind quite a bit, because that could have been you instead of the other boys there. You feel very sorry for them and everything, but you can't do any different. It's war.
Okay, you were in the tank. The wounded guys were being picked up.
Yep.
And then what?
And then just out for the night. We stayed there. The next day, we moved on again. We moved up then till we came to almost to Caen. And then after Caen, I got out of a tank. Then in Caen, I ran a bulldozer in Caen, making the streets, clearing the streets in Caen for pretty near, I guess, a week. And then I went from there into the artillery, the 8th. I was in the 8th Field Artillery for, well, I don't know how long, but I was in there for quite a while, maybe a month. And then you change to go. Then after we opened up the wharf where the boats comes in. What do you call that place? It is the seaport. Right in the seaport. It was not too far from. I think the biggest one was Antwerp, eh? And so then we had two truck routes, Maple Leaf up and Maple Leaf down. And then I run that. I don't know how many times with different ammunition. And then when you'd come in, if you were short of guards, you'd take your guard duty tonight, and you'd do so much guard duty. You had something to do pretty near steady all the time.
And when I did my homework for this interview, I read on the internet that on Juno Beach, the 3rd Infantry Division of the Canadian Army landed on Juno. Were you also a part of the 3rd Infantry
No,
Division?
we'd be part of the 3rd Division, yeah. It's pretty hard for you to tell anything different, because like the 3rd and the 2nd are all right, and then they're all mixed up. When you got to there was another, what do they call them? Bantam, not the small little vehicle we had to call it a Beaver. Now we used them a lot up here in the Mauls part here in Holland. So the Germans flooded it, and you couldn't get in, you couldn't get after them. We had to use it up there. Something like an amphibious jeep. It would go in water or go on land anywhere. So up there they called us the Beavers in that area. But we chased them out. We got rid of them. They got rid of a lot of us too. But the thing was, they thought that nobody could get them, but we got them.
When we continue your story of the war after the landing on Juno Beach, and when we continue the story up to the end of the war, what would be in that time that lies in between the most? What would be a story that you would like to record? What is the most eventful situation that happened after the landing on D-Day? What event is still on your mind?
Well, the worst yet is Holland, the winter of 44, 45. The starvation and what the people suffered here. I even dream about it at night yet.
So you were pitying the people.
Oh yeah. So especially the children.
So it's quite remarkable that you say that the suffering of the population of Holland made a more lasting impression than combat action.
Right. Yep. As you were growing up, you had a life. A kid that started starvation. It's not their minds will never be the same. That it hurts the generations all the way through.
we are fine now, eh?
Yep.
Aren't we?
Well, you're doing good enough.
My father was born on the 18th of April 1945, and the only thing that that reminds him of being a hunger winter child is that his teeth aren't as good as others, because the mothers in the hunger winter, they had a lack of calcium.
Right.
And calcium is very important for the development of the embryo, of the child.
That's right.
And that's the only thing that bugs him, his teeth. And of course the dentists nowadays are so very capable of handling with these problems that it doesn't bother him anymore.
No.
But that's the only thing that that was damaged when he was born. And I think that the Dutch population was so happy to see you, that the hunger winter was awful, but the idea of being released from the Nazis and the Germans was far more important.
You get relief, that's after 5 years, eh?
Of course. And although they had to live through a winter of hunger and misery, they were still glad that you came.
Oh yeah, what would have happened if we hadn't came, eh? Under German rule. And now it's hard to say, maybe under Russian rule, you never can tell, eh? That's when it finished with the Germans, a lot of us thought we should go right ahead then and finish off the Russians, because the Russians, they intended to do that. I don't know, I guess they're all right now. Seem to be getting along.
Okay, I think we are almost finished. What can you remember about liberating Holland?
Not that much. That's just to see the people so happy and everything else, and we were so glad that it was all over.
And when you went through Holland, you went through to Germany.
Yep.
And what did you see there?
Nothing. As far as I went, there was nothing. I forget the name of the place I went. They went there to sign the document thing that the war was over, and that was all that we cared about. Is I wanted then to get back home again, because I had volunteered then to go to Japan. That's what the Americans did. The Americans were fighting then with Japan, so we volunteered to go to Japan, and I was home. I got home. I was home in June, I think it was June or July. I got home, and then we went to another big camp there to train for the Americans, and before they dropped the big one. That settled that hash there. And it's an awful thing to do too, but you have to do these things in war. Eh?
Are you less emotional about a bomb, the bomb on Nagasaki, where also a lot of children died and people died in the hunger winter in Holland?
Well, no, I don't know. It doesn't bother me with bombs, but the kids, it lasts. A bomb bingo, it's over, it's finished. But it didn't finish then, it's going on, it's still going on yet, the people that suffer and drown through that burnt and all. But I don't know, it didn't seem to bother me. Not only that, like the Germans, if I'd have seen them suffering, wouldn't have bothered me in the least. Because some of the things that they did to German, like the people after they picked them up, the Japs, they'll do anything. Well, the Germans are pretty near bad, especially the SS outfit. They should have been all shot, even the ones that said that they were all right, but we never stopped. And we had some pretty good leaders some was good and some was bad. And if you got a British leader, they were more lenient with the Canadians If you and I went on a guard duty somewhere, and you had a pretty rough night. Sometimes you wouldn't bring back too many. Sometimes you bring back 2 or 3, but if they got rough with you, it didn't last very long. But at the British, if you had to make sure that you did it right, everything. Well, because we had a couple of, one was old Captain Muser, the thing there. If our crux was pretty well filled up with prisoners, he said, I don't know where we're going to put them tonight, boys. If you didn't bring them in, you wouldn't worry about where you're going to have to put them in. So he said the good German's a dead German. That's what they said back then, but that's those sayings went through different guys, with different people.
So what you're saying is that the British were more focusing on keeping the battle hostages. What's the word?
Prisoners, like
prisoners of war, to keep them alive, to treat them nicely.
Yeah.
And the Canadians were just.
Well, you question them so far. Either come, we give, or don't give, one or the other. They're out. They're far faster that way. And the British, these lawsuits that the British get, they like them to last for years and years and years. Well, in the Canadian government, or I don't know, the Canadian government now, they're pretty near the same. But in the war thing, it was faster action than you wanted to settle it up. You didn't have months to go on. That's the way they wanted it done.
But to put the words correctly, when you had a rough night, when you and I would be on guard, then you would execute some of them.
Yep.
Okay. And you did that as well, or?
Which I can't say I did, but some nights it didn't come back. Because that's now I've been asked different times to go to schools and give a course like what you're giving now to the children, and that's some of the questions the children will ask. How many? Where did you shoot him? Between the eyes? It's a pretty hard question to answer a child. But I said no, I don't want to do it anymore. Morning. Because you go to school, I like to tell them the truth. Tell them what happened, but you don't know what you can't tell what a question a child is going to ask you, especially these really, really young ones. After they get up 7th, 8th grade, it's a different story. Yeah.
And when you think about that time, about let's say eliminating the enemy, do you feel emotions when you think about those situations, or was it just combat action and it's finished?
Well, no, after you'd see if you went somewhere and you saw the children and that, well, the next day when you had action, you would shoot in on anything that you seen, you would, yeah.
So you say when I see a starving child, the next day I do not have any regrets in shooting the Germans.
Not at all. Not at all. No matter how high, no matter what the way they used to plead, they pleaded that you'd see them things they'd do, and then the next day they'd throw their hands up, oh, they were so innocent, and everything else, did nothing but shoot them anyway. What's the difference? But we had a lot of lads that did it, especially one outfit, the Chaudiers. They spoiled it in a way, because sometimes they'd go into places and they'd shoot everything. You can shoot the dogs, shoot the cats, and everything else. Well, that's not it's kind of a crazy idea instead of a civilized idea, that they would do that.
Okay, I think this is it, Mr. Brown.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Quite
also
welcome.
for liberating us, for liberating our country. Would you like to say something to the children? Do you have a message for children? Because you said, well, I visited schools in Canada. And what did you tell the children? Did you have a message for them?
Tell them to learn all that they can and to listen to their parents. What can I say?
Ja,
Thank you, Mr.
kan
Brown.
ik.
Thank you.
Heb jij een hoofdstuk?
No, that's my passport. No, I'm sorry, I haven't got any in here. I thought I had my address and all on the...